What happens when you give cocaine to a bear? Well, tonight I found out as I went to watch the new movie Cocaine Bear, which was released in UK cinemas on Friday, the 24th of February. It is a new American comedy horror directed by Elizabeth Banks, and it stars O'Shea Jackson Jr., Kerry Russell, Alden Ehrenreich, and the late great Ray Liotta. Um, Now, the premise of this film is that drugs are thrown out of a plane and scattered all over a forest in Georgia, and a bunch of the local criminals, headed up by Ray Liotta, must search the forest for the missing bags of gear. At the same time, we have a mother who is searching for her missing daughter. That's the mother played by Kerry Russell, and she hires the local authorities. And there's also a bunch of tourists, and they all converge in this forest. At the same time, the missing bags of cocaine have been discovered and have been inadvertently ingested by a 500-pound black bear. Now, as I say, what happens when you give cocaine to a bear? It's not advisable. The bear is incredibly aggressive and goes on an absolute murderous rampage. And it's up to the survivors, the people in the forest, to navigate their way out of the forest and away from this furry villain. Now, Cocaine Bear is actually based on true real events during the 1980s. It's based on true events. In mid 1985, drugs going missing in a forest and supposedly being consumed by the wild bears that inhabit the forest. Now, whilst this is based on real events, the film itself is built, designed as a sort of tongue-in-cheek comedy horror. It's not to be taken too seriously. At the start of the film, you get the characters' backstories and what leads them to this forest. In particular, Ray Liotta's character saying they must get those missing drugs. Otherwise there'll be some South Americans going after him. But what makes the film good is there's some good creature effects. There is some CGI on the bear, but it's not wildly obvious. It is good. It's sort of menacing. It's a good sort of villain, so there's good effects with the bear. If you're fans of like gore, it's not to be taken too seriously, then this film is for you. However, for me, overall, it did have its strengths. It was entertaining. It wasn't to be taken too seriously. Some of the jokes I found a bit silly rather than funny. But I think I would have appreciated this film more if I was a few years younger, as I found it got after a while a little bit immature. And I was also disappointed with the ending. That said, the film did have a good 80s-ness about it. There's a good 80s soundtrack. I'm a bit of a soft spot for the 80s and the 90s. I think they're great decades. And this did have, well, I mean, I suppose cocaine was the big drug during the 80s. So it's well set, a good decade. So I do like the 80s. I do like the soundtrack to it, the 80s vibe. But other than that, it is a decent story. It is well structured. It's decent direction from Elizabeth Banks. However, for me overall, Cocaine Bear gets a 7 out of 10. I did go in expecting big things. It wasn't quite as good as I hoped or expected. It did plateau off in the last sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. That the ending left a wee bit to be desired. But good creature effects. It has a lot of strengths. It is worth going to see if you're a fan of creature features or tongue-in-cheek horrors that can't be taken too seriously. Then Cocaine Bear is a good watch. And the concept of a bear doing cocaine, whether it's real life or not real life, is something a little bit different. So for me, Cocaine Bear gets a 7 out of 10. Let me know what you think. Comment below, and I'll be back on my next review. My name is Robert, and you're listening to Glasgow Movie Addict. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.